Alright, everybody, welcome in to the third episode in this series. But instead of covering a topic this time, I want to ask a question. Is psychosis the default state of mind? Now, most people will automatically say, absolutely not, but there are just so many things that could be considered psychotic behaviors. Because in this lecture, psychosis was simply described as someone who sees the world differently. It wasn't anything too big of a deal. But that begs the question, don't we all perceive the world slightly differently? Don't we all have our different views and opinions on things? Don't we all have some difference in the way we view everything? So wouldn't that mean we're basically all psychotic by default? Well, let's look a little further. Over here, this is meditation-induced psychosis. I talked about it in the last one, and it's what brought up this question to begin with. But meditation-induced psychosis is an interesting one because this is the easiest way to induce psychosis in yourself if you really are trying to get to that goal. Because you don't need any sort of fancy sensory deprivation chambers. You just have to really get good at meditating. But if you don't know already, the whole point of meditation is to still your mind, is to stop yourself from thinking. So whenever we're left without our thoughts, our eyes are closed and we're just sort of being detached in some sort of way from our own thoughts and our own senses. It oftentimes leads to psychosis, which has meditation-induced psychosis itself has a whole lot of implications in religion, along with topomancy, which we will be talking about. But I've found it interesting how relativistically common this is. I mean, sure, it very rarely happens to people who don't already have a history of psychotic events, but still, this is very interesting. Now, moving along the line, the next step on this process, sure it's not organized perfectly, is sensory deprivation chambers. As I've touched on earlier, it's basically more extreme meditation because not only are you just trying to still your mind, all your senses are taken away from you. Most of these are gone. Most, if not all of them, are suppressed. So, why exactly would they do that? And why is it so commonly linked to psychosis? So sensory deprivation has a bit of a reputation for hallucinations, for psychosis, and things along those natures, such as hallucinations. But why? Whenever you take away everything that's going on in your brain, along with meditation, and you take away everything that's happening around you, when you're left with nothing to rely on, you invent something to rely on by yourself. Now that connects to lucid dreaming. Because you don't have any of your senses when you're sleeping, do you? So you invent your own story. You invent entire worlds, entire plot lines, entire characters. Your brain works very hard to create dreams because you don't have any baseline. You don't have the normal series of events. You don't have any of your sensory systems. You don't have the ability to see what's going on. So you invent something, no matter how fantastical it is. Now, we get into the more self-induced side of psychosis. First of all, topomancy. Now again, I've talked about this in the last video, but topomancy holds a very interesting place because that's, in a sense, self-induced psychosis. You make yourself see this person, this figure. You interact with this person, this figure. You talk to him. You oftentimes meditate to sort of flesh out this character and to make him work completely independently of yourself. But we spend so much time, well, they spend so much time working on this tulpa, basically end up giving themselves self-induced psychosis along with meditation. Sorry, I'm getting a little sick, so my throat's a little dry. That. Astral projection is along those same lines, where you invent a story for yourself. You sort of invent a world, a whole different plane of reality that you feel you're going to. And whether or not this could be qualified as lucid dreaming, because along with reality shifting, astral projection, reality shifting, and lucid dreaming all seem to be very similarly correlated. But even that, lucid dreams aren't just self-induced psychosis too, because think about it, you're dreaming, you already invented this plotline, but now you're conscious of it, and now you can change anything. You can give yourself these visions, these hallucinations. You can basically give yourself dreams, not only through lucid dreaming, but also dream incubation and a number of other processes along the same lines. Now, I think you've been wondering why I put this tiny little infographic of a cell phone on here. And I feel like that's for good reason. I mean, you're probably watching this on a phone right now, or a device of similar capacity. But this is almost every sensory thing possible. You have touch, the feeling of the phone in your hand. You have the sights, the sounds. I mean, you're missing the taste and the smell, but we just haven't figured that out yet. People have been trying to get those other two main senses into some sort of reality machine, like a phone, a VR headset. Just imagine going into one of those and not keeping your mind here. You would wander off almost no matter how hard you tried, and it would end up in a state of near delirium, a state of possible psychosis. So, is psychosis the default state of mind? Personally, I do believe it is, but this is very much so up to interpretation. Same way what dreams exactly are up to interpretation. How exactly we deal with psychosis. Is tulpomancy healthy, or is it more harmful? Is meditation-induced psychosis a reason to not meditate? Is astral projection real? There are questions behind all of these, but most importantly it is to maybe explore this a little bit. Because hear me out, I have been meditating recently, I have been lucid dreaming recently. I, as a writer, even have a form of tulpomancy in the form of the illusion of independent. I always forget what it's called. Trust me, it's a real thing. You can look it up whenever authors can often have their characters feel like they act independently. So I've had forms of most of these, and I've really loved exploring it. Because if you really get a second to get in touch with your brain, to get in touch with what happens when you aren't so occupied by your phones, sometimes that lack of input doesn't become as scary and simply becomes a tool to look into yourself. Now, again, all up to personal interpretation. Well, if you did like this kind of content, again, better video quality, and it wasn't even a camera thing, I was just on a bad platform. Same with the reason it was messing up my audio quality here. But of course, there are no excuses. So it will continue to be better from this point on, hopefully. If you did like this kind of content, subscribe. There's only 2 videos of this particular style, but there's plenty more content from me coming and already on my channel. If you did like this video, like it. If you dislike it, dislike it. And I'll see you guys down in the comment section.